Hey everybody, welcome to the virtual panel, well, a virtual panel within the Atlanta Film Festival's Creative Conference. This is called Sustainable Savings for the Indie Filmmaker, and we're just dispelling some myths about sustainability, uh, working on kind of cost savings and like solutions that are just kind of tackling more of the mindset. And I'm gonna introduce some of the panelists. Ben Hall, he's first on my screen here. He is with Netflix Sustainability and also directs his own films that have progressively bigger and bigger budgets. I just want to give a second to introduce him real quick.
Right, hi, I'm Ben Hall, and like Dave was saying, I've been working in sustainability for the last couple of years. And in addition, I'm actually directing feature films. I just directed my third one this past fall, and it's going to be premiering in September here in Atlanta.
Great. And Timjuri Willis, she is the founder of Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week. And she is a tireless sustainable advocate. So I'm going to just give her a few minutes for her to introduce herself.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Tangeria Willis. I'm the founder of Sustainable Fashion Week Atlanta. We started that in October of 2021 to really bring awareness to textile waste in our landfills and how we can create alternative solutions, not only for clothing, but for textiles as a whole, and having people really understand what that means in textile, how textiles play a part in almost everything that we do. So I'm excited about this conversation.
Lauren Gloucester. She is amazing in so many ways, but I believe she's the number two at Earth Angel. She's the director of client services. We're so lucky to have such a prestigious organization, one of the heads of it, residing in Atlanta. And I'm going to give her a few minutes to just speak about herself.
Great. Thanks, David. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm Lauren Gloucester. I'm the Director of Client Accounts at Earth Angel. And what Earth Angel does, we're a sustainability service provider for the entertainment industry for a number of TV and film productions globally. And we work to provide sustainability management expertise with digital solutions that are offered by our parent company, The Green Shot, to meet our client sustainability goals, regardless of budget, scale, scope, location, and help to assist navigating the climate regulations that come with that as well. That's me.
Great. Last but certainly not least, we have Dan. Dan Rosenfeld is the founder of the greenest studio in the world. It's the only gold certified, LEED gold certified studio. And just his story of doing that is quite remarkable, but I'm just going to give Dan a few minutes to just say a few words.
Thanks, David. Hi, Dan Rosenfeld, co-founder of Electric Owl Studios here in Atlanta. We are the greenest film production studio on the planet, and very excited about being so. And we don't want to be the only green studio, though. So we've been trying to talk to other studios about how we did things and how easy some of it is to attain, so our productions that come in can be greener. So appreciate it. It's glad to be here.
Oh, great. Well, now that we just introduced like everybody, I just want to just talk briefly about what sustainability is. I mean, we all have various sustainable journeys. Um, yeah, there's this notion that like I don't know, we all have worked on probably sets where they've had like reusable water bottles that they give to set crew and they get left in cars or left on set. And it's been these kind of like solutions that have not been as forward thinking that we tend to group in with sustainability. Sustainability at its heart is just kind of like your mindset on not if something breaks, fix it. If there are like buy quality materials instead of the cheapest thing possible, that way you're building kind of an ecosystem for yourself, and you're building not just an ecosystem within the stuff that you have, but an ecosystem within the relationships that you carry. Like donating your old food to not old food, the food that you don't eat, to the community or to organizations. It builds this lasting trust that you are a communal asset. And those relationships go a very long way. If you're a positive to a community, they're going to want you to film there, and they're going to give you certain concessions. And in some cases, they may, like, use your advisory status on what other productions can do. So it becomes this really important resource, sustainability, that, like, becomes an afterthought from the commotion of, like, script rewrites and all this stuff, and you're just trying to get your project funded, and it's kind of the last thing on your mind. But the earlier you think about it, the better your production will be, and the further your dollar can stretch, and future projects will be helped by. So I think it's something that's really important, that is just from the American capitalistic mindset. We forget about it because we want to buy new. Used is somehow a problem. So I think it's something where, like, us seeing the resources that are already available to us within the community, and we're going to name several great organizations here that you can buy cheap materials or get free materials, and it's something that it's really kind of important for us to kind of highlight, because I think it's just a lot of, like, people are just not aware. So I would love for anyone to kind of jump in and kind of talk about that, or maybe build on that, before we kind of get into our questions for the panelists.
I think just coming in with a game plan as a filmmaker is important. Setting goals for your production is just a huge deal. Being intentional about, why you want to do it, and maybe how you're going to go about it. Even if it's one aspect like waste management, like how are we going to deal with trash on this production, so really kind of siloing the ideas. Our costumes going to come from our actors closets, or can we go to a thrift store, or something that, costume, get the costume. So I just think being intentional as the first, and planning as the first goal is, like most, in most endeavors, the best way to be the most effective. So that'd be the initial bit of advice.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. One of the things that I'm proud to say we did last year we held our first zero waste fashion week in Georgia. And then we also became B Corp certified, and it was really about the intention of making sure we knew what people were coming in. We held standards for our vendors, for everyone that participated, on what they could bring in, no plastics, no, and really having an intentional plan about how the things that we were using to service the consumers, as well as what our partners were using, and how we would supplement those things with something reusable or recyclable or biodegradable. And so understanding that up front allowed us to really to have a successful, diversion of waste of 90% for an event. So, and I think that's something that with a plan you can do easily.
Yeah, and I'll say from our vantage with Earth Angel, things we'll talk to, particularly like repeat producers about, is really that decision of where to shoot is a critical sustainability choice right out of the gate, which is why we love Electric Owl so much. So choosing your location or locations where there is a clean grid, there is sustainability infrastructure available to some capacity. You're working with local crew to avoid the need to travel, folks. And yeah, just looking at ways to just really prioritize consolidating locations. And then working with crew, identifying crew that are sustainability minded. So you're not having to kind of fight that battle internally. You can be working collaboratively as a team from the beginning. And then circular thinking. You know, how are you procuring materials? How are you bringing them onto the production? And then what's happening to those after the fact? How can you keep them in the supply chain? So those are some really kind of initial critical points, regardless of budget and scale, that are really applicable to any production type to prioritize and be intentional about sustainability.
I'll just add from kind of more of a power standpoint when it comes to like fuel emissions reductions. One thing that I've done on all three of my feature films is every time I've shot outside, I've never run a generator. Like I've never run lights. We are always just utilizing the sun. And if the sun's not there, we bring in the negative fill. So just think about these things like, you know, can you work this into the actual thematic world of your movie? You know, can you allow for where you're at to be something that you can just truly shoot naturally, you know, kind of like Terrence Malick shoots his movies, you know, just with bounce and with negative fill and just really utilizing what's already there, because cameras these days, generally speaking, are so much faster when it comes to the exposure than they were, you know, even 10, 20 years ago. So yeah, just once again, like everyone's saying, just really thinking it is a behavioral change. You know, your input is going to determine your output, both creatively and thematically, and obviously when it comes to just fuel emission, fuel reduction, and just waste reduction.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you know, some of our viewers probably don't even know what sustainability is, or don't have a good grasp of it. So I think it's like really important that we're kind of having this conversation just in the first place. Let's see, I think we're about 20 minutes in, so I think if we kind of move to kind of the question portion, and then from there we can kind of just like, you know, rift and get into kind of like organizations or like just good cheap ways for sustainability, because like I understand most people watching this are probably like, they're not operating with the biggest budgets, so it's something that I think the ethos of this discussion is just talking about that behavioral shift that been just discussed, and that we're just talking about adopting it from the onset of just like how to be sustainable. So you're not trying to, oh, I wish I could recycle this bottle that I have, this plastic thing, when you're on set and like, oh, there's just a trash can. You know what I mean? It's setting that stage early where your materials are either biodegradable or anything like that, anything you're buying that's disposable, and then focusing more on reuse. Because at the end of the day, circularity is the most important thing, because it minimizes waste and you're reusing stuff that you could use on later films. And it's just building this ecosystem. And yeah, space is always an issue, but there's organizations like the Shed or other things that you could literally kind of have that same object that you used on your film, whatever it is, whether it could be wardrobe or whatever else, and it could go to another project that really needs it. So cool. If everyone's cool, I'm gonna just jump in. Based off of this this email, I have Dan first. So I'm gonna start with Dan's questions. So Dan, and honestly, anyone can kind of build off of anything here. So please jump in if you want to build off anything Dan says. I want this to be as collaborative as possible.
Especially if whatever I say is really stupid, just jump in.
I really like everything Dan has to say.
We'll see.
You know, so we'll fun. So I know you love to like adapt and pioneer new technologies, like you kind of love to be the first. What's something that like you've seen work, like a method that you installed at your studio, or like a new technology that you have that's like really working right now? Like what are you like most excited about?
Well, I'd say, you know, this isn't a new technology, but it was a tough thing for us to figure out the partnership to actually afford to be able to do it, which is our solar panels. We have over 1,400 solar panels at the studio that offset, you know, over 30% of our studio power usage. And we hope to add more later, but for right now, you know, that's what we have. But I tried to price out at a studio I ran in Los Angeles. I tried to price out buying panels, and it was such a steep number that I just couldn't do it. The magic of real estate is, you spend a certain amount of money, but you need to get your money back eventually. So certain expenditures just aren't worth it, or just not viable as a business. So we partnered with a local company here in Atlanta called Cherry Street Energy. And I think their business model is really fascinating and got us to sign on with them. And basically, they don't want to be the seller of panels. They want to essentially be a utility company. So they installed however many panels I could fit at the place, on the correct buildings. They installed them for free, gave us the panels for free, did the conduit work, everything was free. And their financial model is that I did a 15-year energy deal with them where I basically pay for the utility bill, the electric bill for the stuff that I use from their panels, I pay to them. And the remainder of it I pay to Georgia Power, and then they're on a separate grid basically. So it was a great deal for me. I didn't have to buy a single panel, didn't have to pay to install it, and their bill is lower than Georgia Power's. So it's a simple thing, but they're really at the forefront of that model, and they've done a lot of work for the state of Georgia and for City of Atlanta and for Emory Hospital and all over the place locally. So really excited to have that just because I tried for a decade to get solar panels at one of my studios and was finally able to. Another thing that I think is a small thing, but it's working, is that we did in all of the production offices, in all the break rooms, we did throughout the campus, we did plumbed water. So we have filtered water machines that completely eliminate the need for plastic bottles in the offices or for the big plastic jug deliveries. So we've cut out, an insane amount of plastic waste and, truck drivers and deliveries for the big jugs of, the water cooler stuff. So it, the biggest deal for us is how can we affordably implement certain things that make it a no-brainer for our productions to use. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is like they love the idea of sustainability and being green, but if they have to go out of their comfort zone at all, either financially or do too much work to make that thing happen, they shy away from it. So our goal was very much just to put things in place that were turnkey, that were very easy to use. And we also don't charge for any of our kind of green stuff. I get asked that from producers. I love sustainability, but how much is it going to cost me? And that was a big goal of ours too, is that it's not going to cost you. It's just part of the buildings. It's part of our infrastructure, and your cast and crew get to utilize it. So, super psyched about that. And then one more thing, we have these great pollinator beehives on campus. Um, I love them. I love that we have two beehives, that are producing almost 90 pounds of honey a year for us. It's a great company that works with us called Bee Downtown, and they put beehives, pollinator hives on corporate campuses to educate people about the importance of pollinator bees, but also to, increase the activity of them and spread it around. And I just love having them there, and our productions love seeing them. They're off to the side, so no one's in imminent danger or anything. I've named all the bees. There's several hundred of them, and it's just a great thing to have. And then Bee Downtown actually bottles the honey for us, and then we've been able to give those honey bottles away to our productions as little crew gifts. So just a nice thing to have, and I could talk a lot more about it, but I won't right now because time. So thanks for the question.
Well, just quickly, how does the honey taste? How is it?
It's incredible. It's awesome, and it's as local as it gets. There's no honey like it. They pollinate 18,000 acres around the studio, and so you get this mix of just local stuff in there, and it's delicious. I'll give you some. Um, we have a lot of bottles of it, and it's just a cool thing to be able to know that put this in place, and that there's like this result too. That's it's pretty special. So yeah, that's good.
That should be a marketing strategy. If you rent at my studio or if you partner with
Yeah.
me, you get honey. You get not
Right.
honey, you get like the freshest localist honey.
No doubt.
That's awesome. And you have worked with indie productions before. I mean, in some cases, indie productions don't have a lot of funds to do something, like we need a month, but they might need a few days on a stage or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So you have partnered with indie productions before because I was on one of them.
Yeah.
Commercials, like we've used your space for a commercial project I recently did.
Yeah. And I think, this isn't really about sustainability per se, but since we are a sustainable studio, if there's any local filmmakers or anyone who comes to Georgia to make a project, we do hard work to make it inexpensive for indie projects. It's important that we kind of give back to, I know what it's like to make an indie film, and it's really difficult, and you're squeezing a lot as much into it as you can on a low budget. So we try to be really production friendly with regard to, the lease fees, et cetera. I give away a lot of stuff for free to indie productions. So, um, you know, I got into this world because I love movies and TV shows, like very much. And so I'm passionate about it. So we're a partner with these projects to really, help them reach their goals and fulfill their dreams. So the fact that we're a green studio can just automatically help an indie production with their sustainability goals.
And you get honey.
And they get it.
So does anyone want to build off of that at all? I know that's a very specific Dan question. So I'm just going to jump into the next one. I know you mentioned just like you do a lot of work with huge budget, but like it varies sometimes. Um, what like sustainable solutions that you're seeing that can someone adapt cheaply? And like kind of what are some local organizations they could use as a resource? And I know this is a question targeted for you, but probably everyone on this panel can answer in some capacity. Um,
Right.
so I would kind of love to see things that like just cheap solutions for sustainability that you can think of.
Yeah, well, I think let's start with like catering, having aluminum water bottles if you can't, if they don't have like plumbed water or, which people rarely do that have, filtered water, getting aluminum cans locally there's a company called Rain that I literally buy not only for our office, but I fill up the fridges for our incoming productions so uh, they can see what's local and like, hey, this is a cool thing to buy for here, and it's great water. It's cheap. It's not expensive, and aluminum's like infinitely recyclable. So things like that for crafty and catering, just kind of being intentional about the brands you buy. Obviously, often there are certain, you know, uh, kind of plates and silverware that might be a little bit more expensive, but I've actually started to find products that are on par with, the major brands who have plastic in them. So like really just having goals on that front and buying the proper stuff is very doable for an indie production. I said earlier, and I think it's important, think about your costuming and how you get your costumes. And I think, instead of buying brand new or having to make everything from scratch. I think, having it be a recycling of, either the actor's wardrobe, like their personal clothing, or finding things in a thrift store or wherever it may be, I think can be super helpful and not that difficult. A really easy solution, I think, is if you are renting lights from a local light company. Almost all the major grip and electric companies have LED lighting, and I think that's a super easy thing to jump into. Um, And I've got a couple other things, but if anyone else wants to, oh, and I'll tell you about local companies that are, I think, great for indie films. Or, Life Cycle Building Center is in Atlanta here, and they will collect pieces of things, whether it's raw materials or set pieces or props from local productions. They store it in their warehouse, and then they end up selling it to indie productions at a very low rate, or they give it to, Habitat for Humanity or other companies that are building homes, affordable homes. So Life Cycle Building Center is amazing, and they put we have a pilot program right now at Electric Owl with them where we're starting to put their branded bins everywhere in our studio. And I think that's a cool thing to have for an indie production too, is like have bins for materials. Like don't throw the stuff away. If you're working with wood or building set pieces, like you're going to have scraps, throw it in the wood bin, have a, metal bin. These things can be reused, in a multitude of ways. I have a show right now with us. Their costume department uses every scrap that they cut as they're cutting clothing and stitching them together. They throw the scraps in a bin, and then they just have this massive pile of scraps that they've actually been able to kind of bring together for other costumes or other purposes for the production, or they can donate them at the end of it. So there's a ton of stuff that an indie production can do just in the collection of its own kind of waste in its own material that doesn't cost anything. So I think it's important to be able to do that. And please, anyone else, feel free to jump in.
I just want to like talk just for a second about your last point.
Yeah.
I said Dan is like the newest to pioneer new technology. We were actually on a panel together for the PGA, and I was talking about these bins because I do work with Life Cycle, and Dan was like immediately after the panel, I think even during the panel, you were like, I need these bins.
Yeah.
Literally, like by the next day, it was in the works for it to be at Electric Owl. He is such a trailblazer in the world of sustainability, and just it just shows Dan's tenacity and just how they're having such a great effect on this production that you have now is it's so amazing to hear. So yeah, I'll let other people talk about kind of local organizations, like things they can use or resources, because I know we all know a lot, and it would be really great to spread.
Well, I definitely want to echo the sentiment on life cycle building. We used life cycle building for our set design for Sustainable Fashion Week last year. And not only did we get materials from them, when we finished with the materials, they came back and picked them up so that they could resell them. So we when we broke everything down, we called them back, and they came back, picked them up, and now they can sell them or use them for other projects. And so doing things like that, I think is really a way to, especially if you don't have a really big budget. Some of the other things that we've done is partnered with high school and colleges that have film schools within film programs, and they're always looking for experience. Their professors are knowledgeable. They make sure that everything is up to code and on par, and they work with them to be able to provide set support, or even we've even used like their orchestras and their harpists and their music and music departments to be able to do participate, and they're really excited to do it. Also for us, we also created a community closet and a repair cafe. And so with the community closet, we allow people to come and work with organizations or films to come, and they can get clothing for a donation or something, where they're not having to spend a lot of money on clothing. And then we have a repair cafe where we have volunteer seamstresses and volunteer repairers of jewelry or different things that will repair items that have been, torn or ripped or something from a reuse standpoint. So those are some of the things that we do.
And how does one take advantage of this? Is it yeah, just tell me more about that.
So usually we definitely have them available at our events, but through our website, we'll have pop-ups where we're doing repair cafes, or we'll partner with another company if, if they need a repair cafe set up somewhere. We have a warehouse space, but we don't always have our repair cafes open there. We are usually working with another organization or another company, or during our events, to make them available.
Great. Well, it's so interesting to hear everything Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week offers.
I'm gonna throw one more vendor in there. And just kind of thinking like creatively about what resources you're aware of that might be able to support sustainability goals. Again, regardless of budget type, is I actually have compost now as a residential customer. And when we had a commercial shoot, we could not find a hauler for that shoot that provided the level of transparency that we require for the zero waste services on our zero waste strategies. So just gave Compost Now a call, and we were able, this was a few years ago, and we were able to kind of workshop a program, and now they are our go-to person, our go-to waste hauling vendor for compost, and there's full transparency. Which, again, you can't manage what you're not measuring, and they help support that capacity on the zero waste. So again, just like thinking, kind of maybe the approach you have of folks or companies doing things that you might not think has an application in the TV and film industry, but maybe just give them a call and see. And we were able to do so with Compost Now, and they're doing great. They're awesome.
And I know as like filmmakers, cool. I know as filmmakers, we have a relationship with our vendors and rental companies and all this stuff, and it's just kind of further pushing them. Like I've done that with my waste vendor, where he now they provide Baxters, like trash Baxters, and now they provide recycling Baxters for us, because we want that on every set of ours. So it's, if you have a long-standing relationship with a rental house or anything like that, just being that change, because I mean that's just like an easy solution that's free for us, that that collaborative relationship that you already have can just go to making the community a better place, like lessening landfills, lessening pollution, and having sustainability. Okay.
So I know you guys mentioned Scraplanta. They're a big partner of ours as well, I think, and they have 2 locations now. They have one in the West End area and Create ATL, as well as the one in Tucker. So, and they have some amazing arts, crafts, fabric, all kinds of things. And then also Charm Atlanta, if you're familiar with Charm, that's a great place as well. I mean, from paint to electronics to, all kinds of things.
Yeah, that's a great place. Thanks for mentioning that. We definitely have sent productions their way. I think it stands for the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, and they'll take anything, and they'll give it away too. That's an excellent place. And rescuing leftover cuisine is a good place too. They will pick up all kinds of food from your production that's left over, and they will give it to those in need that day. And so this can be frozen food or stuff that has already been cooked and is just in a tray. They'll pick it up that day. So they're called rescuing leftover cuisine. Easy phone call to make, and they'll come and pick it up. There is a fee for it, but you can set it up, especially for an indie film, in a pretty inexpensive way.
A great name too. I'm gonna plug my own. So I was just on the phone yesterday with Adam Friedman. I'm gonna butcher this name now that I'm on the spot, but it used to be the Atlanta Green Theater Alliance. I think it's the Atlanta Green Arts Alliance now. And there's an organization, so they help run the South River Art Studio. And there's this thing called the Shed. I know I already mentioned it briefly. It's about probably 1,500 to 2,000 square foot warehouse where everything is free. It's for artists. They have an in-house kind of like artists that kind of utilize it, but there's paint, there are props, there are all different resources that you can utilize, and it kind of operates like a very large uh, take one and leave it library like you see like in neighborhoods, but with things for artists. So, and I think that shared kind of ecosystem for artists, I mean, if you're an indie filmmaker, you're similar to other artists where like um you're lucky to like make money sometimes. So it's you're doing it for the passion. Um so it's something where uh creating these like shared ecosystems that get built on by artists is super important. And I encourage you within your communities and groups to create these like shared resources that you can all pull from and utilizing stuff like the Shed, because the Shed could just become more and more. And then you have the inexpensive solutions like Charm and like Scraplanta as well that you can turn to without having to go to like some art supply store and buying something like that. There's such great solutions out there that it's every filmmaker should be uh, aware about. So anyone else for this question? Does anyone else have anything to add? Cool. So your third question, Dan.
Wow.
So I know you're a producer as well. But let's say you were a producer from one of these like big projects that are coming to your studio. How would you like format that production from the onset to be sustainable? And like in what ways could this be cost savings down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would segment everything, I'd write it down. I go look at my catering. I would look at my energy use. I'm sure I'd love to hear Ben on this too, because he does this for a living for productions. But um I would basically have a game plan for every department, find out the best ways to be sustainable in all those departments, and find out if it's going to cost, X amount too much. How can we shave that down? But you know, for me at the studio, the infrastructure is everything, because I'm just providing so much for productions. So if I was making one of these huge movies or TV shows, I personally would want to go to a green studio to start if it was a studio project. Um, just because, then you've already got the ball rolling and a lot of it's already been done for you. But if it's not a studio project, I would just go line by line through the script and through each department and figure out um, what what was useful. But the cost savings, I think, ultimately come in. I mean, it's not so much like, oh, we're going to save money because we're being sustainable. You save money in just smart ways, whether you're sustainable or not. I mean, it's just, figuring out your buying power, figuring out how to reuse things. That goes, you know, whether you're being green or not. So that's more of just a being kind of fiscally responsible for your project. But Ben, please feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, when it comes to indie films, when I say indie films, I'm talking, less than $150,000, budgets, and obviously maybe more than that. But you're already kind of set up to not buy a lot of stuff and not be able to rent a lot of stuff. So you're already kind of already sustainable because you're just not getting all the perks that big budget studios get and all the waste that comes with that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that it really does come down to maximizing the minimal, so just whatever you are doing, just making sure that you're maximizing it to the fullest, when it comes to your waste reduction, your fuel emissions, kind of like what I said earlier about, if you're shooting your movie predominantly outside, if you've got a fast enough camera, don't get a generator, just like run with it. Have some V-mount batteries for when you do need some lights, because a lot of the LEDs these days take V-mount batteries. So you can charge that off your house power at home every night, So yeah, it really is just thinking about things just a little bit differently. And I will say that, I mean, as an independent filmmaker, like, I think the indie world does give you're already having to do that, like Dan was saying, like, you're already crunching numbers super hard, like, take an extra 5 minutes to think it through a little bit further, to make sure that you're not burning a generator all day long, or you're not buying 20 cases of water, plastic water bottles, that kind of thing. So I think Dan's got the right idea, and it can be applied. I do think it can genuinely be applied to independent film.
Very, very cool. Okay, so finally, your last question, Dan. How do you adopt sustainability into your life, and like what practice that you have that you think improved your quality of life the most?
I try and buy like clothes from brands that where sustainability is important. I think, being super focused on I'm not a freak about it, but like just being focused on brands that where sustainability is important to them, and that goes to your food or your clothes or your cleaning supplies. I buy cleaning things from a company called Blue Land, and I've been doing that for years, and it's great. They're like little tiny tabs with in paper packaging that we use for our hand soap, dish soap, and laundry. Um, this summer I'll be starting to plant like vegetables and herbs into my backyard, which I've been talking about for a long time, and finally doing it, which I'm super excited about, just to, grow my own stuff and walk outside and pick it out of the ground. So really excited about that. But yeah, I just, try to put my money into companies that are thinking about the earth and I don't think I think it's important to know whether it's in your personal life or a professional that like you're never going to be perfect and that you shouldn't be too hard on yourself or others if they're not doing everything that they could do. Um, that's obviously the goal, but I think that I forget what the old phrase is like, perfection is the enemy of good or something like that. I probably botched that, but like, we're constantly thinking of new things at the studio and in my home of what can I do, right? But there's always it's a never-ending process, like you're not going to get to a place where, and I don't want to live that life where I'm getting to a place where every little thing, like where I'm taking less, breaths during the day. So I'm, not like, so, that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be start small if you're doing nothing at all, and then to expand from there and, keep your eyes open to opportunities for it.
Yeah, and I know we all can build, and I'm just gonna say I don't like driving my car anymore unless like I have to for work. I love biking. It's just such a better traveling experience. I interact with people. I see friends more often, like just either going on the belt line or just going down streets or just finding places that are just like I wouldn't know about had I had my car, or I wouldn't have gone down this like really cool area. So you just discover more and more. And that's something for me, if it's just ultimately a sustainable act that we don't think about, is using a bike instead of a car. But yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I've enjoyed all your answers. Does anyone else want to like kind of build on just adopting sustainability and how it's like maybe improve their quality of life? Or like I would love to hear if anyone has anything else to say.
I'm just very, very similar in that vein. Yeah, I've got two kiddos. We bike everywhere. We've got a e-bike that is our car. It has been for the last 6 years. Big old Danish cargo bike. And yeah, we use compost now. The elementary school my kids go to, it's a public City of Atlanta school, and the project-based learning theme is sustainability at their school. And so these kids are very creative. And sustainability is all about like enough resources for the here and now, and then for the future. environment and those here. So it's just very cool to be incorporating and having these conversations right off the bat and just like in your community. Because there are so many resources that, you know, we've all been speaking to here.
Amazing. I didn't realize you didn't have a car and it was your primary mode of transportation was e-bike. That's incredible. And does anyone else been or Tangeria?
Yeah, I've been driving a Prius for almost 10 years, and then when we had our daughter, we decided to do bamboo diapers since they compost and break down a lot cleaner than regular diapers, and then yeah, we're just really conscious of just, you know, we don't buy plastic water bottles unless we absolutely have to, you know, like we just are really waste conscious, and we're hoping next year to start doing compost now here as well at home. So 'cause it is a great program that I've worked with in the professional setting. So yeah, so like you said, just like where you can, when you can, you know, just thinking about these things. And one of the things we did recently that's been really successful is, and it's such a simple thing, but we started buying this particular brand of laundry detergent that's the same price as anything else. That just comes in a little aluminum tin and it's powder, you know, instead of the big plastic jugs, you know. So yeah, it's there's these little things you can do that are, you know, they're definitely going to cost more. I think one thing, you know, is I do think there's a bit of a myth that these things don't cost a little bit more. They usually do, but you know, once again, it's like if you're able to, why wouldn't you? You know, just to do what you can to just help this circular, like we were talking about, just like doing things circularly and just thinking about things that are going to recycle better or actually, you know, dispose of better, you know, so that way we're not leaving all this stuff for our kids and grandkids, you know, buried in the earth and up in the atmosphere. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the things may cost more on the onset because you're not buying plastic, but like the materials could be better and you could reuse those in other ways. So, I mean, I think that's like the myth of like we have to buy the cheapest thing absolutely possible, and like you just scroll on Amazon for the highest rated whatever that is the cheapest. It's a myth because if you want to start adopting this mindset, it's adopting on circularity and reuse. So you're investing in something that's going to last a lot longer, and you're honestly probably saving money over time doing so. And there's other like resources like Barron's Bike Shop in my neighborhood totally transformed my neighborhood. I mean, it was back when this neighborhood wasn't the best place to live, and it gave the kids a hobby where they could work at a bike shop, and if they worked long enough at it, they get their own bike. And now people from all over Atlanta donate their bikes to Barron's Bike Shop, and you can get a really quality bike for little money, and all the proceeds go to this amazing organization. And so like it's not going to a bike shop and buying the newest bike there is, it's shopping around. Maybe that's a solution for you, but but there are other solutions where you could buy a very, very nice bike for a low cost and support a great organization, and it promotes circularity within it. Like both of my bikes were gifted to me by my dad, you know, like and they're amazing, and I would not trade them for the world. They're steel, they're not like the cheaper materials, but like they can survive anything. They survived multiple crashes. So
Another thing that I do, but I've always done this even before I got into sustainability, which I think Kendra will appreciate, is that I wear my clothes until they have holes in them, you know. And then when I was a kid, my mom would patch up the holes, like she'd literally put patches, iron-on patches. So, but yes, I find what you're doing, Kendra, to be really cool. Just like, you know, I think textiles is a really interesting space to be in right now.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you know, we do the same thing here, like household laundry detergents. We make sure that they're, you know, plant-based or, you know, something that's not, you know, I'm very much into the microplastics and, you know, and making sure we're eliminating those types of things. So really focusing on what we're buying instead of getting Ziploc bags, getting the reusable containers, you know, things that will last. And to your point, I guess I saw it rubbing off when my daughter, as proud mom, just placed third in the regional state science fair for her project on the biodegradability of fabrics. So so it's rubbing off, but I think just one step at a time. You know, we talk about the cost and things being more expensive, but as you say, when we look at it over a long period of time, and also the chemicals that are in these cheaply made things that are really causing us harm health wise, the things that we're putting on our body that are decomposing in our fabrics, whether they're in the plastics in the Ziploc bags or something else. Read your labels, because your labels tell you so much about those products. I was in a local store one day and I saw they had silicone sponges, and on the packaging it said something like may cause cancer or something in fine print. But read your labels. You know, it's there, and if you just take a moment to do that, you can make so many small changes.
Well, that's incredible. Well, I knew that question would be answered by everybody. And it's super cool. So I'm gonna move on for time's sake to Lauren. And I just like everyone here, I want to know everyone's sustainability journey, but particularly in you as a micro, because I think I have questions pretty much for everybody in this regard. At what point in your life did you like aim to help the environment and become more sustainable? And like, I guess answer that question first, because I have a follow-up question to that as well.
Sure. Yeah, I would say like in a really intentional way, would be when I went to college. I went to Vassar in New York, and I was the first graduating class for the environmental studies major. And during those years, I took a class my junior year that looked at the socioeconomic and political implications of the fossil fuel industry. And then that in turn prompted my senior thesis project, which was building a biodiesel processor at the college. And so I smelled like a French fry for my entire senior year. And I would collect all the used vegetable oil, which was an experience, from all the dining centers. And I would go to the chemistry lab, which was the first time I've ever entered a chemistry lab, and would do titrations, figure out the acidity, the base. And I effectively had a giant blender, kind of like a big processor I built. And I made biodiesel at the school, and then they used that fuel to power the buildings and grounds equipment. And so that really sparked my interest. And in a former life, I did lead consulting, so working with architects and engineers to design green buildings. And then a number of years ago, shifted the focus of sustainability to the entertainment industry. So that was my journey.
That's so awesome. Like, so I want to know, like, what was your biggest like aha moment that like, I don't know, where you made like a huge difference, or you felt like you made a huge difference, and like that, I guess kid you or college you would be super proud.
Well, what I'm really proud of is that biodiesel processor is still there. I don't want to say how many years later, but I'll go ahead and say 20 plus years later, it is still there. And the city where the college is located, it was discovered they were illegally dumping on a farm that we had. And so those funds that the city had to pay back have gone to that project to clean up. It was like organic waste they were dumping. Organic in terms of like dirt and things they really should not have in that place. And so they were able to use the biodiesel to remediate. And yeah, that was just a really kind of incredible feeling to know, like, the whole idea of sustainability is that it is still there. It is still causing impact and making a difference, and has been incorporated into the curriculum for environmental studies. So that's pretty cool.
That is awesome. So yeah, does anyone else have anything to add? I know that was you know what? I have pretty much questions for you, all of your sustainability journey. So I'm just going to move on to the next question.
Sure.
And that is, when should a production start thinking about sustainability? Like, should it be in the script revision stage? Like, what steps in pre-production? Oh, sorry, that should be a follow-up question. But like, should it be as early as that script revision phase, or like?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of opened with that too, right? Just like that very intentional thinking right off the bat. But yeah, ideally it would be in that script revision stage. And thinking like, are there through lines to incorporate climate here? Could there be a more intentional climate storytelling angle even that might be appropriate? We know the power of storytelling through TV and film, and what that can do to behavior changes. Like, we used to always see smoking portrayed on the screen, and you didn't really even think about that, right? And so now, there's been such a shift culturally away from like everyone smoking cigarettes constantly. We're not seeing that on the screen anymore. So it's kind of like, how can we have those components of sustainability, even if it's just like, everyone has a reusable bag in the shot, like in front of the camera. If we'll talk about, when we'll get the script, and the productions we work with will ask us, for input. And it's like, you've got a scene on the subway, and all those ads in the background. Could we just put really simple stuff like, don't forget your reusable water bottle or bag or whatever? And it doesn't have to be some, giant statement by any means. It can be just really subtle behavior changes that in time will really start to have an impact. So yeah, we really kind of as soon as possible in the writing, and then otherwise we just say for us as soon as the production is greenlit. So the productions, we're always asking at least 12 weeks to engage someone like Earth Angel, a sustainability service provider. It allows the work to be so much more efficient and effective. It saves a lot of money than trying to retrofit sustainability, because decisions are being made with sustainability in mind. And so we can have meaningful strategies that really look at the budget and the timeline and the locations. We can prioritize that circular thinking approach. We can seek out local incentives that might be applicable, and technologies that also might be available, and how those could be procured for the production. So yeah, just as early as possible. Always, always.
That's awesome. Like, what steps have you seen in like pre-production that you thought were like really innovative that ended up being both like time and cost savings later?
It was a significant budget on a production, but when we started having the very initial conversations, a particular studio wanted to explore fully decarbonizing the base camp, and so we were able to do that and work with. This was in LA, and work with a local vendor there called Greenlight Solar Trailers. They're actually affiliated with BI Production Works in Atlanta, who's amazing. We fully decarbonized base camp. It was amazing. It was all solar. And we just, published the final impact report there, and able, again, that transparency of being able to, we always go back, you can't manage what you don't measure. And having that like telemetric data coming to us so we can provide feedback in real time about what's working, what's not, and really give that value. And they saved an immense amount of money on fuel. And it was so successful that same studio is now going to deploy the same plan in New York using Emerald Green Trailers, who is also affiliated with BI. And they're in New York, which is very cool because we have historically had pushback in the city about concerns over solar. Like, is there sufficient sun? The buildings, LA has so much more sun. And that is underway and is going swimmingly. So we're pretty stoked.
That's amazing. And I think you told me the story one time of this production designer who like designed their buildings in a way that could like, or the flats and everything and how they connected to the sets in a way that could be broken down super easily and efficiently, and the materials be saved without taking like a wrecking ball to them. I'd love if you just like spoke like just briefly on that.
Yeah, so we actually we work with a art director who, you know, is a real champion of circular thinking. And so effectively like constructs to deconstruct responsibly for reuse. And it does help. We know it's like it's episodic and we know we have another season coming. So it even further supports that mentality that this is just going to save us money. It really makes absolutely no sense to do otherwise. And when we think about time as money, now they're not having to research and procure and go through the process for season 2 because they deconstructed intentionally and responsibly. And set themselves up for success. So it wasn't crunch time. We weren't having to pay, you know, extra labor fees to break it down or extra hauling fees, because the waste hauling fees are significant for these things. And so, yeah, it's really refreshing when we do have a kind of eco champion in places kind of decision-making authority, like this particular art director.
And it saves later down the road. I mean, it saves through waste hauling, it promotes circularity, studio time, you know, and like all the things. I mean, that's just huge. I mean, I know like there's various level of people watching this in terms of budget, but like just adapting mindsets like that of like, what if we plug into a house that we're at rather than having a generator? Or what if we do a tie-in to this business so we're not disturbing something? I mean, it's just thinking in that sustainable first mindset of utilizing what we have or utilizing things to be reused, I think is so important.
Yeah, it's nice when sustainability in its very essence saves money because it's just making more common sense decisions more intentionally. And in the end, it helps your pocketbook too.
Yeah. I'm just gonna kind of I know it's 5:20, so I think we've been on this for roughly an hour. I'm just gonna jump to the next question. And I know a lot of festival goers really love A24. It's something that's pretty standard at every film festival, and they're an amazing studio. They're one of my favorites, if not my favorite, just for the way they do things. I know Earth Angel and A24 have a completely special relationship, and I would love to know more about that. Know kind of about the individual productions and like just the people at A24 on the top level and just kind of your experience with working with them so closely.
Yeah, no, A24 is an amazing client to work for. Obviously their content is so fun and wild and scary and everything. But yeah, A24 engaged Earth Angel a few years ago to help them kind of define the studio sustainability expectations for their productions. Not so much requirements because it's encouraging productions, making it approachable. How can, kind of as a sustainability service provider, creating a scalable model, again, that can be applied to, a tentpole film to an indie. And so A24 really committed and they allocated a portion of any production's budget that goes to sustainability. It's built into the chart of accounts and they have reporting on all the results of their productions. So in our work with A24, we've seen their productions have been really successful in achieving like easy cost saving wins by eliminating single use, opting for reusables. I would say our A24 productions really prioritize material donations to eliminate those hauling expenses we just talked about. And then of course we see the more, like complex cost savings that are achieved through the fuel savings from utilizing hybrids, electric vehicles, solar, where they're able to. And then again, just Earth Angel's work with A24 really does highlight that any level of film can garner impact, whether you're tentpole or that indie. And just, yeah, we can have these small packages that can work great for a small budget. That just entails the kind of remote consulting, providing sustainability strategies, providing a license for the green shot, our reporting. So you can have just as extensive reporting outputs as a tentpole production would, for a price point that fits. So that's really what's most important is, and A24 has really highlighted is, you know, they come to us with some pretty conservative budgets at times. And even still, they have always earmarked sustainability in their budget.
Yeah, and I was going to highlight that they have a super restricted budget. I mean, I know most A24 films are kind of between that 1 to 5 million like budget. And that's like a tier 1. I know that seems like a lot of money to some of us, but in terms of the union world, that is kind of the lowest budget that you have. And the fact that they adopt sustainability at the forefront and they're seeing cost savings and just approaching, I think they were also the first to sign the SAG agreement. And they were working during the strikes because they were like, we don't see anything wrong with this. And I think it's just speaks volumes to them and their foresight as a production company to do things the right way. And I think they, as you you know, observe, they do experience cost savings, and them just adapting sustainability and just retraining their mind and doing that from the onset just to eliminate things that would otherwise go to landfill or for reuse. I think that's super cool. And I think everyone at the festival loves A24 films, likely. You know, I mean, coming to the Atlanta Film Festival for a long time, those are the ones that always get sold out.
Yeah.
No matter what, and get sold out early. So it's so cool. I love that you work with A24 closely, and that was kind of the most interesting thing.
And another like just quickly cool thing they do is they, you know, again, it's embedded in the leadership there. So those with like the real decision making, they're directly emailing with us. They're on the calls. They've created an internal green committee. Anyone who's interested can participate. And so they're really welcoming everybody into the effort and making everyone aware. And then they also engage us to do an eco audit of their offices, to look for opportunities of like, look, we're renting this series of floors in a space in Manhattan. Like, what can we do within the confines of what already exists that like we can't change the waste hauler, so what can we do? And so yeah, they've really championed it in a really robust way. That is fantastic to see.
Does anyone else want to kind of speak? Has anyone else worked with A24 before? I unfortunately have not, so I'm just curious if anyone else has any like personal experience with the studio. Okay, well, I'm gonna move on to your final question. And I'm gonna put you as a studio head. So in this metaphorical question, you're a studio head. What practice would you implement studio-wide that would create sustainability at the forefront?
Yeah, so kind of similar, piggyback what I just said of allocating budget. So allocate 1% of all production budgets to sustainability. So that's both the labor necessary to execute the sustainability strategies on the ground, as well as to procure the suppliers, the products, the tools in order to achieve a meaningful sustainability program. Hire line producers that are engaged with sustainability. So you're setting the tone right from the start. We talked about that earlier, kind of what can we do early on. And it's getting the right people on your team. And then working with service providers and, you know, obviously I would say Earth Angel, and then the tools that we implement, like our Green Shot reporting tool. So setting those reduction targets are going to increase accountability. And so as a studio head, again, that's something we would, you know, in this world, that's something we'd look to implement. So just like we have, you know, financial budgets for productions, also look at setting carbon budgets as well. So I would say those would be the main bullet points.
And I know, Ben, you kind of do this for Netflix in a way. Just building off of that, putting you in that position, like what do you think as well, just building off what Lauren just said?
Yeah, so well, first thing I'll say is, as I'm speaking here today, I'm not speaking on behalf of Netflix, but yes, I do. Yeah. Yes, I think what Lauren just said is absolutely right. Putting the money and the right people who have the right attitude towards this is key. What I've seen personally in my work in the last couple of years regarding this is it does come down to perception, and it comes down to the availability to actually move forward with these initiatives. Because as we mentioned earlier, there is a little bit of an upfront cost, and although we know that down the line this is going to benefit us in multitudes of ways, you have to get over those hurdles. And so I do think the studios and the production companies that are willing to, put the manpower and the finances behind this, will be the ones that will be the most successful.
Sweet. There's a reason I singled you out a little, is because you're the next group of questions.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, sorry if anyone else has anything to say, just raise your hand. I'm just kind of moving a little quickly throughout this just for time's sake. So I just love like insight, how you like carved your own path in production and how you like turned sustainability into like a cool new department. In what ways did you see the growth of the industry's like desire for sustainability, like to have all that foresight? Yeah, I would just kind of love to know more about that, because it seems like you had like a premonition in order to do this and put yourself at the right place at the right time.
I did, very much so. Probably more so than anything I've done in my entire life, which has been really cool. Yeah, so I've been in production for the last 12 years, and in between doing studio television and films, I in Los Angeles I directed 2 feature films, and I just directed my third one this past year. So I am like Lauren, am actually coming from the film side of things. Like I'm very much a filmmaker and want to be directing full time, but until I can get to that point in my life, this has been a really great opportunity to do something very purposeful within the industry. So during my time in production, I worked my way up from office PA to production coordinator out in Los Angeles, and production is a grind because it's there's not a lot of creativity going on. It's a lot of logistics, and once you do 20 projects, every year back to back, it becomes a lot. So on my last show in LA before I moved to Atlanta, I was on a big show for Netflix. I learned about Netflix's sustainability initiative, and as I mentioned, I already had a kind of an interest in it in my personal life. And when I saw that they were kind of hiring what seemed to be probably like maybe kind of a PA level individuals to run these things, I was like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, I think you want someone more like me who's been doing this a long time and really understands kind of the infrastructure of how movies are being made and where this stuff can fit in or lack thereof. And so I immediately started talking to the individual that was the rep on this show, and she introduced me to the heads of sustainability at Netflix, and I just kind of told them, "Hey, I'm going to Atlanta. Do you have someone there?" And they said no. And so once I landed here, I was their guy. And so they brought me onto a pretty big show for the last 2 years. And long story short, I just started approaching it as I would as a production coordinator, just seeing like, what are the issues, where can we implement, and then how can we literally sustain it. So yeah, I definitely, this was nearly 3 years ago when I started pursuing this. The premonition that I saw was like, A, the world's going this way. B, the studios are going to want to, utilize this kind of tech and want to be part of the forefront of that. So I was like, this just seems like a really purposeful place to be. If I'm not directing a movie, I want to be doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, so I did, like you said, I saw it and I saw my skill set being appropriate for it, and here I am. So.
And it's so cool. You kind of created this own department through this and had more foresight than the studio did. Because of course they're gonna go, yeah, we'll just throw a PA on it to see like whatever. That's their solution to everything at first because it's the cheapest. But that's so awesome. And just to build off that a tad, I know you talked about it briefly earlier, but just tell me a little bit about like your life and your relationship with sustainability to like have that insight to become the trailblazer you did. When did that start like clicking for you?
So I was talking about this the other day with someone. In 2004, a movie came out called The Day After Tomorrow. very silly disaster picture, but it's about global warming, you know, but a very silly depiction of such. So even back then when I was in high school and saw that film, that was kind of the first time that you know, a film kind of brought to my attention, oh, climate change is a thing. And so from high school on through college, it was definitely always in the back of my mind, but it was never a priority for me. I was like everybody else, just, you know, kind of do what I want when I want, you know. And then once I graduated and moved to Los Angeles, I do think being in LA and seeing people slowly kind of changing how they're doing things there it brought it back to my attention and kind of pushed me to want to study and look into things a little bit more and just, you know, just I just want to be responsible for what I'm doing, you know, in my personal life. Like I don't want to be someone who's just, you know, the typical, you know, picture of American, just, you know, consumerism. You know, I didn't want to be that. So yeah, so it was a very slow rollout. Like I said, about 10 years ago, I bought my Prius. It was the first car that like as an adult bought. And I was like, hey, I know this will be you know, fuel saver, you know, and so once again, obviously costs, you know, saver for me. It's like, this just makes sense. Let me go for this. And then, you know, as the years went on, I just slowly kept picking up these little things of like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be buying all these Ziploc bags. I can buy a reusable, you know, bag, you know, like maybe I shouldn't, you know, be using, you know, this particular product because it's like I can do something that's a little bit more, you know, like instead of a plastic bottle, it's a glass bottle, you know, just these kind of elements of just changing this stuff. And then obviously, you know, over the past decade, you know, in the news, you know, climate change has become a bigger factor and it's really in our faces. So I saw this need that, you know, globally we need to take in all sectors and in all, you know, personal lives. And so, yeah, when I saw it kind of popping up on set, I was like, wait a minute, this could be something really, just really purposeful, you know. You know, you can get lost in it, but not like you can in production where it's just constant grind. Like this is just something that, you know, you are ultimately bettering the future, or at least the potential for bettering the future.
And like, it's not just like the future, it's the current. I mean,
Yeah,
I know one of your main goals is lowering, this goes on my like next question a bit, but is lowering carbon emissions. You're lessening the pollution for things that are around you. I mean, the
right.
fact that this is not becoming more standard and incentivized by state and local governments
Yeah.
and productions itself, um, it's kind of mind-boggling because you're improving the space for which you're filming. So, like, and just kind of going into this and rifting off that is, uh, like through your research and all this stuff into um, lessening carbon emissions. What are like some cool creative technologies that like are expanding rapidly, that one can adapt to either like set or base camp to reduce like generator usage or vehicle idling? Um, is there something that
Yeah, so all the technologies I'm about to talk about, generally speaking, aren't too available to indie filmmakers right now. I mean, unless you do, if you have that tier one budget you were talking about, the A24 rock and roll with, like, yeah, it's very plausible in those budgets. But anything under, you know, anything under 150,000, 200,000, it might be more difficult. But battery tech is expanding this. Lauren referenced the Solar Ring, that BI and Emerald Green, and what was the Limelight? Is that their company in LA? Right?
That's green light.
Greenlight, sorry, yeah. So all three of those, same parent company of BI, which they build their trailers here. They you know, they're manufacturing here. That kind of battery tech and utilizing the solar has been very impressive. It's been really exciting. And then, you know, the second next best thing is just utilizing hybrid generators and also just hybridizing generators with batteries. That's been a huge push, and that's actually right now, at least in my experience so far, crews are the most welcoming to that concept because it's a 20-year-old concept. I mean, Priuses have been around for 20 years. So the idea of having a battery paired with, you know, some kind of combustion engine, everybody understands that. Like they get that concept. So that's been pretty effective implementation. However, you know, we still want to keep pushing more and more towards, you know, true grid battery power tech. One of the other things that I know is really making waves in other countries. It's not here in the United States yet. It's actually hydrogen power. So that has been a really big push elsewhere, and I think in time it will come here. But hydrogen power, as it's done nowadays, it generally speaking, the only emission is clean drinkable water, which is pretty cool. And I mean, that's not there are other little specifics to it. It's not, there's never going to be a free lunch, right? Like there'll always be some form of emission. There'll always be some kind of cost to these things. And when I say cost, I don't mean financial, but just like some kind of everything is being consumed, right? So it's like you're never going to get out completely scotch-free, but this is probably about as close as we get. So those are things I'm seeing and really enjoying being a part of, and I think these things are going to expand, and once again, they all have their caveats and they all have their case-by-case situations. So like in the instance of indie filmmaker, I could see like a little, 5K battery being a really great option instead of a generator, because once again, if you're running around with just a couple LED lights, you can play ball with that all day long and then just plug it in at your home or wherever you're going that night to recharge it and put it back on the truck the next day. But once again, as we've been talking about, it takes you have to think about it. You have to make sure that every night you have 2 or 3 guys that can pick that up and put it in your house to plug up, and the next morning put it back on the truck. So it's just these little nuances that are really important when you push in this direction. But what's great about batteries is you, by and large, can have a battery in play 10 feet from camera, whereas a generator is going to have to be 50 yards to 100 yards away. So it's less cabling, and it's just the noise pollution is probably been the element that I've found the crews are most appreciative of. Is they like, oh wow, that thing's silent. And so yeah, it's it's completely quiet. So you find these little tactile things about these devices that make it worth people's while.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just building on that, like what would you imagine there would be a cost savings? Like let's say you had like a 20-day shoot and you had an indie production. It was pretty low budget. I mean, budgets that you're directing with, that or you direct with so far throughout your journey. Could that be a solution that they have, and would they have cost savings with gas? And especially like obviously cable rentals, they would lessen that. Like, would you see them potentially having cost savings, or just something that wouldn't be that big of a cost considering all the saving factors?
It truly does come to case by case. Like, what are you doing? What are you running? Fuel costs alone, probably not. But going back to what we just said about cabling, and then also, potentially like, if let's say you're shooting at a house and you need a little bit more power, you don't have enough house power there. Typically if you're running a generator, you're going to want that in the next yard, if not 2 yards over, just because it's so bloody loud, right? So now you're not having to permit that house. You're still in your yard. So there's these, once again, these little nuances. If you can really look at it holistically, I would tend to think with a 20-day shoot, $150,000 budget and above, yeah, you could probably break even at the very minimum. And once again, you might find some nuance ease to it. You're not cabling as much. There's not a noise pollution. You're not permitting the house next door. So it's these little adjunct things, these that I think are really where you can see cost benefit at this level. But once again, if you come in with a like a 20K battery, yeah, you're probably not going to get any cost savings there. Like, that's just going to be an expensive piece of equipment. But like a 5K battery, with different, depending on what vendor you go to, you can probably get for a pretty good rate for a month rental kind of thing.
And what about like during lightning delays? Do you have to do it, like you can just shoot through them, right? You don't have to do that.
So,
Can't do that with a generator, right?
Right. So in my experience so far, and every studio is going to be different, and every show is going to have different protocols for safety, and understandably so. What I have seen happen is, as long as you are in a lightning safe building, yes, you can keep going. Absolutely. I saw it happen on 2 occasions, actually. Now, if you're not in a lightning safe area, if you're outside, no. But yeah, so far most of these batteries are rated to keep moving forward, in that, and the reason being is, unlike a generator, a battery is not creating power. It is simply storing it. So that's where like the fine line of can you keep moving forward with these devices is it's not something that if it gets hit, it's just going to like go into overdrive and push out insane voltage. Like it will, generally speaking, probably just literally absorb it. So that's kind of the thought behind it.
That's awesome. And just for time's sake, I'm gonna ask you kind of answer these questions briefly because
Sure.
you especially kind of answered this first one. I'm just really curious, you as a director, like how do you adopt sustainability in your films? You spoke on that earlier, but like please speak how this like changed from like a micro budget to your, more modest budgets of today, because your budgets are increasing pretty rapidly. And like what advice might you give to an indie filmmaker from like in your shoes? Because likely most of them are.
Yeah, right. I mean, like I said earlier, it's just maximize what little things you have. If you're shooting outside, odds are you're on a digital camera that has good ISO, and you have probably fast lenses. Don't run a generator to try to augment with light. Use the light you have. So yeah, I've yet to ever run a generator on any of the films I've directed. So just trying to mitigate that when possible. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I mean, I think it really does come down to just thinking about, we use aluminum water bottles on my last show, like these little things, which it does, it costs a little bit more, but once again, if you can encourage the crew to fill them up and have the ability to have that plumbed water or, something there on set, just a cooler, like, you might actually come out once again breaking even because you're not buying case on case on case of this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think to me the easiest way to summarize this, that way we can get to Tangira, is just doing as much as you can with what you have. Like really just squeeze everything out of it, and just think holistically. And LED lights have really come a long way. Like just really utilizing them. We did a shot in my last film where it was supposed to take place during the day, and normally we would do it with an HMI light because we were shooting it at night. We were able to do that with an LED light, So it's like we were able to plug right in the house power, didn't need any additional power, So just like really experimenting and thinking about, what you can truly do with little, with just a small amount.
That's awesome. So I just want to like fast forward 10 years in the future, and presume that like sustainability has continued this growth. Like, what do you see? Like, what does a production look like? Like, what does it look like on set? Is like every truck solar paneled? Like, what is your premonition for like, does like filming equipment even look the same? Like, like, what are your thoughts if a decade or maybe even 2 decades in the future, how do you see filmmaking if sustainability continues its current?
Yeah, I do think every truck with a trailer will have a solar panel on it because that's already very much happening as we speak. So I do think that. I don't know that everything will be completely electric, but there are 5-ton electric trucks in the works right now, and there's a couple here in the States that are in play. So potentially, if hydrogen power really takes off, I do foresee a lot of hydrogen vehicles actually. And I think generally speaking, I mean, LEDs will definitely rule the world. And I think in time there will be an LED that will match an HMI light. And I think once that happens, that will really, once again, we can truly run around with battery power a lot more effectively. So yeah, I see a mix of solar, battery, and if, like I said, if hydrogen takes off, I think that will be gangbusters. That will really be, in 20 years time, I can actually see it all being replaced by hydrogen. That'd be my guess.
And does anyone want to take a sentence or two of like what their thoughts are, what the future looks like with sustainability in mind?
I
Or
definitely think
what a dream future might look like.
I think camera rigs in general, cameras will be, continue to become smaller. I think they're able to pack a lot of technology into a smaller package now, as we can see with, iPhones being used to shoot projects. I think the use of drones in film and TV will increase, to be able to get certain shots now with a drone compared to back in the day with these, giant condors and, giant pieces of equipment, that could only get this big sprawling wide shot from the sky. Now you have a drone operator who's sending the small machine up into the air. I can see that becoming more prevalent and potentially even more prevalent for normal kind of tracking shots and just having a drone come down a hallway and, things like that, which, just ultimately makes the entire filming process more low key, just easier, less equipment. And I certainly think that the volumes, the LED virtual production screens will be used more in the future when this is the technology, that the Mandalorian used, where they do all the post-production, they do all the world building and VFX at the front, and then they're able to project those onto these wraparound LED screens, put set pieces in front of those, and have the actors in front of those screens. I think that I have a feeling that will become more prevalent once the technology gets a little faster and less expensive. Because right now it's still kind of a huge endeavor to set those volumes up. But I do think with kind of weather patterns being what they are right now, that I feel like a lot more production will kind of end up indoors than before. And I also think from the standpoint of not wanting to travel through a region, a city with so many trucks and so many people, I feel like it's going to become more contained. It's just a guess, but you have a generation of people who are, like watching things on their phones and on smaller screens. And I feel like the production over time will have to acclimate to not needing to be so expansive, or at least not be needing to be so expansive in an analog way, meaning, you know, you're not going to have to go out to the pyramids to go and shoot a scene in front of the pyramids. So I do see a lot of that kind of you know contracting and becoming smaller.
And we're also seeing like this huge rise. I mean, there's billions and billions and billions being made in China right now from vertical content. And it's just how we're at a screen so much on our phone that most of the content we're consuming is based off of usually on our phones now. So you have these and it's coming to Atlanta. I mean, I know I've talked to locations that we've rented and stuff like that, and they'll rent out like a mansion for like 2 or 3 days and produce like a feature length film within that time through vertical means, and then they do it very cheaply in every regard. And like they might do like a 1 year contract with an actor for like 150 grand. I just think it's really kind of amazing just how it's already transforming. But yeah, Dan, I saw you raise your hand. Just do you want to build on that? Oh, did you not mean to raise your hand?
Did I? I didn't mean to.
Oh, okay. No worries. Does anyone else, before we move on to our amazing panelist, Tanjuria, does anyone else have anything they want to build? It's just a super unique question. I was really curious on all of your takes. So, rad. Okay. So certainly, not least, but last in this, just because it's just how my questions were formatted here, and I didn't want to trip myself up. We have Tanjuria Willis with Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week, or Sustainable Fashion Week Atlanta. And it's so cool to have such a unique voice here. That is someone who's operates like an outsider, but like does so much for the sustainability world here. And I would just love to kind of know more about your sustainability journey, like what first interested you, and like kind of as a kid, like were you creative with like your wardrobe, or like did you design clothes with creative materials, or like did you have dolls that you manufactured clothes with? Like I just would love to hear kind of more about your journey and just what started you on this path.
So
my journey was not as intentional, I think, as some others. I did always love fashion. I was, did the whole voted best dress in high school kind of thing, friends and I always, really focused on, what our dolls were wearing, what we were wearing. But for me, my journey didn't start till later on. My degree in all actuality is electrical engineering. And so for quite some time, I served as a plant systems engineer for a nuclear facility. Go figure, right? Makes sense. It tracks. But I think my journey started really there indirectly because, if you know anything about things like nuclear facilities, they are not located in the best neighborhoods or near the best neighborhoods, usually near an underserved community. And so, driving out of that every day indirectly affected me as I was seeing these neighborhoods and seeing these things. And so, I always had questions about why that was. But in that same vein, I was seeing also landfills, who was also, very huge and very near underserved communities. And so I think that's how indirectly my journey started. As it progressed, I started, it really kicked off along the same time as fast fashion started to really get really prevalent. And I was never a fan because I always thought the clothes were so cheaply made and the quality wasn't there. Didn't really look into why until I had my daughter. And then, when my daughter was about 2, she used to have avid nosebleeds and wake up in like pools of blood, every, just like, and we went and we had the allergy testing and all of the things, and nothing was there. It's just the basic stuff, and humidifiers. And so I just started eliminating things. At the same time, so this story is not very happy. I had friends that were developing things like cancer that never smoked, and so I just started wanting to find out what is happening now, because it was really unusual to see this to me. And so I started eliminating things not only from my local household, but just really starting to look at labels. And when I started to think about it from the engineering perspective, looking at how our skin is the largest organ on our body, and how when I looked at these labels of clothes and what was used to produce them, and seeing that this chemical causes cancer, or this chemical can cause this, I started to see the effects of that, and I got angry. I wanted to, because I felt like fashion and textiles are made to be so superficial. It's just pretty, so we don't market it and we don't talk about it from that standpoint. And I wanted to create a way to be able to educate people, and they still be stylish and they still do all of the things. And so that's my journey. That's how I got here.
That's amazing. I mean, also heartbreaking, but amazing you found that connection and you strove your hardest to make a difference. And especially you seeing these underserved communities being like benefactors of just, oh, this is where the poor people live, let's put this facility here, or what have you. It happens way too often, especially in America. No, that's really rad. Just kind of moving on, just for time's sake.
No. We don't have much stuff. Let's
Well, I
go.
love that said we could go a little over 90 minutes. We're 10 minutes over right now, but I don't want to like go too over for viewers' sake and our own sake. But yeah, no, I do, and I do want some closing thoughts, and especially like, to be able to connect with everyone. So I'm gonna get through these last few questions. without trying to provide my input, which can sometimes be meandering and take a while. um, but I'd love to hear more about your thoughts of the fashion industry and like how it's like its impact on our environment. Like, can you tell me more about like the waste and pollution it causes and how that inspires you? Like, and was that your biggest catalyst for starting Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week?
Yeah, it really was, because fashion is one of the worst perpetrators. We're the second largest pollutant to the landfills and textiles and fashion. Where, years ago we used to focus on the 2 seasons. Now there's a new fashion trend every week. So there's usually, so now there's so many more clothes by the billions that are being thrown away annually because of our overuse and overproduction. And so the reason why I wanted to create Sustainable Fashion Week was to really bring education and awareness in a way that was receivable, that people could understand it, that I felt like it was being talked about at a 30,000-foot view, and I wanted to bring it down to a level where people could see the direct effects of how it affects them and what they could do differently in an incremental way, that it didn't have to be all or nothing. But that there were ways that you could make small changes to what you were doing. And also to introduce the fact that we've been doing this forever. Our mothers, we just gave it a name of sustainability when we decided we wanted to monetize it. But, we've been doing reuse and resell and hand-me-downs from our big brothers and big sisters and things like that. We've been doing it all of our lives in most cases. And so I wanted to really reintroduce that to people and a sense of creativity, because to me, sustainability is all about creativity. Being able to make a shirt into a skirt or a tie into a bag, that's creativity, that's art. And so being able to introduce it that way is what I wanted to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, very cool. I want to just get on to the next question, because I think it's really kind of cool for our viewers. How does one shop sustainably without breaking the bank? And it's kind of a two-part question, because like what local resources are good for those wanting to buy sustainability, and like the best consignment stores or stores with sustainable fabrics and materials. And like personally, like I'm a big fan of Change. They're like a New York organization. They do streetwear, but like 99.9% of their water is recycled. And organizations that I care about, they'll donate to. And they're just very transparent parent. But like, what are some other eco-friendly brands?
Yeah, I
know
think
that's a lot in one question.
yeah, no, I think that's great. Companies like Mud that makes jeans, they do jeans, and they do like free repairs, and they do, they're a sustainable denim company. Looking at places like that, I think are really great places to shop. Out of the Closet, which is a thrift store here, that they also most of their proceeds go to HIV and HIV testing and prevention and things like that. They're huge. Shopping community closets like us, there's other community closets that are around that you can find places. E-Closet, which is full disclosure, is also my consignment store. It's one of the things that I started before I started Sustainable Fashion Week, but we focus on luxury consignment. So if you have a need for, in your film where you're looking for the rich person that needs to appear in designer things, working with a luxury consignment store that way, where you can potentially rent or buy them for lower amounts. There's also a place called Second Stitch that I love, and they're inside of a place called Top Stitch. Top Stitch teaches you how to sew, how to create, how to use things with the things that you have. Second Stitch, they have fabrics and notions and all of those things that are really, really cool. So I those are some of the places that I love.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just kind of building off of that, what are like just good cheap options? Because I know like Ragorama back in the day used to
Yeah.
be very cheap. Now, like I go in there and it's like, am I really even saving? What are like some just really like are a lot of those stores just kind of in that like lower threshold of just you're feeling like you're really cost saving?
I think now because, thrifting and consignment has become really popular, it's kind of like organic was back in the day, right? When, it's like now it's very popular. So some of the stores are you're seeing that in their retail prices going up, places like Junkman's Daughter, Interchange. A lot of things that I'm seeing also are swaps. I think those are very good ideas, even for working with between film companies. If you're an indie film, working with another indie film and doing swaps on wardrobe swaps and things like that, where you're not really paying for anything, you're swapping things out. I think that's a really cool idea. And there's a lot of, you can find those all over the place. Estate sales, I love. It's a little bit more planning, but you can find great things there. So those are the kind of channels I think you go outside of just doing the retail shopping piece.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just building off that question, like we have an issue of like, oh, we'll need a very specific type of clothing. Like let's say like a white tank top or something like that. Like typically we go like plug in the closest Target or whatever and buy it. And what's a way that we can prevent doing that? Uh like is it just searching consignment store
Yeah.
or are there ways that we can be sustainable while doing so? Online resources or a quick pop in like uh, that's pretty centrally located to the city that like is likely going to have something very specific that
Yeah. And I think that's when you're developing relationships. You're developing relationships with certain stores and they kind of get a feel for what the things are you need. Sometimes you can shop a Goodwill because they have some new items, like you can purchase new socks at a Goodwill in packages, or new shirts. They have some new things. And so places like that where you can get them for cheaper than you would a store like a Target or something that's newer, I think those are also good options as well.
yeah, that is awesome. So building off the last question, and this kind of goes into my last question for everybody, um, which I will ask it like individually after this, is I'd love to hear more about Atlanta Sustainable Fashion Week. Like what is it? How can we to participate? Like tell me more and tell us more.
So Sustainable Fashion Week, it is an event, but it's also bigger because we do year-round things. We do workshops and we do other things as well. We teach at some of the local schools and sustainable fashion for them. But it is an event that really encompasses really everything around the sustainable beauty and lifestyle ecosystem. So from hair to beauty products and cosmetics to laundry detergent to sustainable and handmade clothing and handbags. And so we have 2 events a year. We do an event that we're actually doing this year with Atlanta Film Festival. So we will have a show celebrating Earth Day, our spring show on April 26th with Atlanta Film Festival at the supermarket. if I think Chris has it set up where if you buy a certain bundle, you get actually a free ticket to the show. And if you buy a VIP package to the show, you get a ticket to see one of the film days. And so you can get the best of both worlds. And so as part of that, we'll have vendors, we'll have, food, we'll have music, where we'll have an exhibit. One of the things that I have is I have the Conscious Couture Museum, where we have exhibit sculptures made from trash. So you might see a dress made out of caution tape, or you may see, just different things like that. And so it's a really fun time. It's engaging. We talk about fashion. We have fashion shows. We'll feature designers. We're doing a project this year where we'll be doing a preview of that at the show in April with the college football playoffs, where we are taking their banners that came from the playoffs that happened earlier this year, and we're creating them into fashion. And so we'll be previewing some of that, showing you other things that we do with textiles. And then we have a multi-day show in September where we have several days of panel discussions and film and exhibits and vendors and all of the fun things.
That sounds amazing. And where can people go to learn more, or how can people connect with you to learn more or to pick your brain about?
So our website is Sustainable FW, like Sustainable Fashion Week. So sustainablefw.com. And then all of our social media, all of it is ATLSFW, ATLSFW. So we tried to make it as easy as possible. So there's not the real ATL, it's just ATLSFW. That's
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much. I just want to highlight each of the panelists real quick. Tanjuria obviously has been a beast within the Atlanta sustainability world, and so great to hear your story. Ben has become a close friend of mine. He is, I can't mention the show, but he is on one of the biggest shows in the world and reduced carbon emissions drastically on that. And I would love to go to each person briefly, if just for some closing thoughts, or for how people can connect with you. I know most people are not going to see this till after the Atlanta. Well, everyone's not going to see this till after the Atlanta Film Festival concludes, because they don't want to take away from the in-person viewing experience. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of people want to connect with each of these panelists. Lauren, obviously a beast within our sustainable industry, and has just been incredible. I'm sure people want to learn more about Earth Angel and how it could work with their budgets or what have you. So I would love for you to talk briefly about that. And Dan, I'm sure people will be flocking to Electric Owl to want to utilize everything you have to offer, especially if they've made it to the very end of this video, which has been long. This is like a reward for everybody. So I'm going to start with Ben, just because you're first on my screen. Go to Lauren and Dan, just for some closing thoughts, how people can connect with you potentially, if you so wish it. No pressure. But yeah, I just want to kind of go from each of the last people.
Yeah, you can connect with me at my email at benhallfilm@gmail.com. So that's just BenHallFilm@gmail.com.
Drop in the email. It's amazing.
I'm up next.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Yeah, please reach out. Another thing I want to mention is we have what we call an eco rep program. And so that's effectively a program where we hire, train, staff eco reps, which are effectively like production assistants, but we say eco rep because you are wearing many hats and you are the boots on the ground, implementing the sustainability strategies that we create alongside the studios or production teams. And so it's a really great way to get involved. It's a great way to make some money. We've got commercial shoots and films in Atlanta, all over the map, really. So if you go to Earth Angel Sets, SETS.com, to our website, you'll see how you can become an eco rep if you want to add your name to the roster. And then when we've got something going on in Atlanta, our staffing manager will be in touch to see if you'd like to, really get that training and that experience that you can then bring to your own productions and be that champion. And you can also email me at lauren@earthangelsets.com. Popcorn Dan.
Nice. For Electric Owl Studios, go to electricowlstudios.com. That's our website. All my info is there. People can reach out if they want to talk sustainability, film and TV development. I really love this world and this industry. And so, yeah, reach out if you want to learn more about what we're doing in sustainability or if you need help on a project. So I appreciate, the ability to talk with, all of you here. It's really cool to see what everyone's doing and to bounce ideas off each other. And we really appreciate everyone who watched this for, hopefully enjoying it and sticking around.
Yeah, and I just want to personally thank each of you. You have a powerhouse panel within the sustainability industry that will rival any panel that one could pay really good money to see. And I love what everyone is doing. I love learning more because I've gotten to the point of knowing quite a few of you super well. So, and I learned something new about you guys every time. So it's personally like this exercise for me moderating this was just me getting to know people that sincerely impress me and that I've come to really hold dearly. So I just want to just take a minute to just give all of you your flowers for what you do, and thank you so much for participating in this panel. And at that, for the Atlanta Film Festival's Creative Conference, Sustainable Savings for the Indie Filmmaker has officially concluded. And thank you so much for making it to the end. I'm gonna stop recording. I don't know how to do this.